What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Everything Paranormal Show with your hosts, Josh Morris and Stacy Talich. Stacy, how the hell are you?
Peace. Doing good.
That's
Doing
good.
good. Yeah. Like I was saying, sorry for the fridge in the back over here. Uh, had to buy a new fridge and replace the floor underneath it. So fridge came in and still fixing the floor.
Well, don't worry about it. I think it's better. Like sometimes it would be really cool if you just have things like a refrigerator in the living room and then don't explain it. Like just act like what? That's normal.
Yeah.
That's always the best. But
Yeah. And the Berkey. The Berkey's always a staple here. So
so guys, so tonight we are going to be discussing, of course, the overall topic, which is going to be, if you clicked on this, I did title this as basically, do you have paranormal powers? Like, is it possible? Right? I said paranormal powers because I didn't want to say like psychic. I didn't want to put like a label on particular because there's a variety of aspects, let's just say, of paranormal. We're going to get into it. But so, guys, if you were ever wondering, do you have a particular ability or a particular gift? Do you have, certain things? Stacy and I are going to talk about these things, and we're going to try to help you maybe to identify them. We're going to discuss why they're there, why they exist, all kinds of stuff. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss all this. And let's see. What else was I going to say? Other than that, no, guys. Also later on, stick around. I'm going to be streaming a new game. Taylor Lynn's got one lined up for me. So if you normally have been watching me on Twitch and YouTube, I will be streaming on there later, probably around 11 o'clock. So I'm excited. We got a new game. Anyways, guys, so paranormal powers. Stacy, I just kind of threw that as a generic term as we can get into. But one thing I would love to touch on first would be probably one of the more, I guess you'd say, basic powers that like everybody seems to have these gifts, right? Some choose to not explore them, some ignore them, some are scared of them. But anyways, I think probably one of the most basic, this is just my opinion, but I think it would be intuition, right? I think that's kind of the most basic things. Everybody gets a feeling, right? We get a feeling, things like there. Carolyn's like, well, hey there, sunshine. Talking to you, not me.
oh, hey.
Right? So, but I think the most basic level or that people can kind of relate to on paranormal powers is intuition. Stacy, what are your thoughts on the intuition on that level?
Well, there's two different definitions of intuition depending on your school of thought. Uh, in the military, they actually recognize intuition as being a very real thing. You have the intuition, which is why the remote viewing program was created in the first place back in the day. It was to use the intuition of essentially the universal matrix, the psychic powers, the psychic spies, was created by the military. After that program was shut down, the military tweaked the idea of what intuition was, is to be a supercomputer subconsciousness in your brain that was always thinking and always calculating and always observing, taking in all kinds of information through your eyeballs, your ears, and your overall experiences, and then calculating a possible scenario for you that you didn't consciously actually do on your own, where that gut feeling,
Right.
what a psychic power necessarily from like a paranormal sense, but a supercomputer inside your subconscious that was actually calculating the probabilities of there's a car bomb down that street, so don't go down that street, or an IED over here. You were calculating the possibility or the odds of an IED, and your gut was telling you don't go over there. It wasn't a psychic power, but an intuition that was this super thing inside your brain that was doing it for you. And mentalists will actually use that form of intuition in order to manipulate you into doing the things that they want you to do, which is a form of hypnosis, actually.
Right.
But that level of intuition is there. It is true. You have that subconscious mind that actually has all of that. You take in an enormous amount of data. They've actually calculated it in computer terms that your conscious mind, the one that you're using right now to think and to do all the things that you're doing, looking, seeing, hearing, moving your arms, all that, your brain only has about 64K worth of processing in order to do all of that all at once. And you have around 23 watts of electricity in your brain at any given time. It's not even like that's a dim bulb, of power that is actually powering your whole brain.
Right.
The unconscious mind is actually underneath it. They have a thing in the middle they call lemon, which is where you get the word subliminal. It is below that is actually taking in gobs of data that you're not even aware of at this point. The 64K is your actual processing power, but the data dump that's happening to you all the time from all kinds of input is closer to 24 gig.
Right.
Your brain has the ability to delete out what it deems unnecessary in order for you to function. So 24 gig worth of information every second is coming into your brain, and only 64K is actually being processed. So that 24 gig is the part that they call intuition.
Right.
It is your brain calculating all of that sort of thing. Personally, I think that's horseshit, but there's a level of information that does come to you that your brain is receiving, that it is coming in and you're perceiving. It's just your ability to actually pay attention to what is important in that data stream.
Right.
Scientists don't know what is actually all involved with the data stream. Where is it coming from? What is it exactly? And how are you actually downloading it? They know it's happening. They see it happening in CAT scans and things of that sort, but they don't know exactly what it is.
Right.
I'm of the perception that this is a consciousness that is not only universal in the universe, but amongst humanity in and of itself. Your ability to pay attention to what happens in that data stream is really the skill in order to become psychic, because everybody gets it. Just most of us have learned how to ignore it. That is a skill that we have learned since, birth, to ignore the information that comes into us.
Right.
It's beaten out of us, essentially. We're told, oh, that's silly. That's not real. It's a dream. That's your imaginary friend,
Right.
all other stuff that children perceive because they don't know they're not supposed to.
Right.
That they are tricked into weeding it out and purposefully deleting that from the data stream.
So real quick, let me interject real quick. So Terry Lynn asked if or reminded me to put up my sponsor. So guys, real quick, we're always sponsored by Paranormal Underground magazine. Definitely go check them out. The only reason why I don't have it up on the screen is because I'm using the free version of StreamYard. I have not paid for it in a while because I've been trying to cut costs thanks to certain management in the government. We have a high cost of living, and I'm trying to cut down expenses. So we're going with the free duck up in the corner. But Terry Lynn is right. We are sponsored by Paranormal Underground magazine, and but we'll cover some more. I want to talk a little more about our friend Bob too a little later. And Taz in the chat says, "Hi Taz, by the way." Taz says, with intuition, and this is kind of what you were talking about, but I wanted to go ahead and officially throw this in here. He says, with intuition, can it be common with everyone?
Well, common is relative, but everybody has it. It's just a level of of being able to pay attention to it. You can relearn how to pay attention to it. That's a skill into itself. And I teach that in the remote viewing courses. That is how to pay attention. It's done through positive affirmation. That's how we learn everything is, this happened the way that it should have happened. Your brain locks that in and saying, oh, well, I'll just repeat that over again. And it builds upon the ability in order to do that sort of thing. Now, some people have it thrust upon them because their brain got rewired for them without their permission, really, with car accidents, near-death experiences, situations where they went into surgery and they popped out of body for a little bit and they suddenly realized that the world is way different. That realization, that epiphany will rewire everything to where you have an expanded consciousness at that point. And as they say, once the consciousness expands, it can never be rebottled. It will continue to be at its new expanse level or increase. It really is sometimes a little bit scary to some people when that happens, but it's not something to be afraid of. It is just suddenly realizing you wake up in the morning and, hey, I've got 2 arms, or I've got, the ability to do things that should have been natural the whole time. It's, but again, society's one that beats you down in the first place. Doesn't mean it has to keep you down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's why I just wanted to make sure we talk about these things too, because of society in general. It's kind of a weird subject when you start getting into intuition and even psychic abilities, clairvoyant abilities, remote viewing, anything that has to do with what I call paranormal powers. That's anything above the normal. Then society gets a little weird and people don't always have answers. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know where to find these answers, or sometimes they seek them in places that are not really helping them. They're either giving them bad information or, could lead them to, running into problems in the future. Kind of like how paranormal investigators that get started, they have nowhere to start. They look at the shows, they look at other things, and they go run out and do investigations. And next thing you know, they're bringing stuff home. They've got problems. They've got spiritual baggage, all that stuff. So same thing with paranormal powers. If you don't know what you're doing, you really want to find guidance.
Right. And everybody's a little bit different, but at the same time, the process is the same.
Right.
Once you understand the basic idea that your brain is a quantum computer, your soul is the quantum element. Quantum computers don't have a time parameter. They literally are beyond this dimension. Quantum computers also, it's like a computer itself. It's a two-way street. You have this ability. You suddenly start sensing things. You start hearing or sensing what other people are thinking. You complete phrases for them when they don't even realize what they're saying. You're starting to read people's minds on a certain level. That it's also two-way to where you can actually push that and get people to think what you're thinking. It's a form of persuasion. It's once you understand that this is a two-way communication, it's incredibly powerful, and not everybody really understands that or uses that part correctly. The people that understand it relatively well are the worst kinds of people. They're the people gaslight. They're the narcissists, things of that kind. They're always pushing their agenda outward, and people take it in because, well, that's what we're supposed to do. and they don't even realize that it's actually happening. You can be manipulated without ever realizing you're being manipulated. That's kind of the dark side of it all. But at the same time, once you see it, it's like a magician. You can't unsee it.
Right.
You always know that that's what's going on.
Now, so let's move into maybe the next, what I would consider could be the next. And if I'm wrong, you can always bring up something else. But I think the next most common paranormal power, if you will, for a lot of average people. Again, now remember, this is non-developed stuff. This is I'm just talking about things that people experience. And again, that intuition, that gut feeling, that's kind of like level 1, right? The next thing I think people seem to maybe commonly get is visions, right? Premonitions or visions, some type of vision, usually with normal people in the form of a dream, right? So how do you distinguish between a dream and a potential vision? And also, let's look at the visions that can occur without being in a dream state. Do you think that might be like the next common thing that people tend to experience?
Yeah. I was just watching a comedian that was talking about this, people who have a lot of mental illness, not intense, but I mean, you have bipolar disorder and different things like that. They give you like, a cocktail of different drugs to try and keep you balanced. Well, these drugs actually induce a lot of that, where you'll have night terrors and visions and things of that kind in your sleep that you put into real life situations, and it becomes very difficult to tell the difference because the serotonin levels of what these drugs do to you, you don't even feel like you're in a dream. You feel like that it's the real world. It's actually happening to you in the moment, which is usually a telltale sign that it's actually a vision and not a dream. You can feel the difference in the scenario. You are in a situation or in a place that is not only familiar to you, but out of time. You're doing something that doesn't make sense because you're not doing something that you should be doing in this thing. It's like, for whatever reason, it's a cutout of something in time instead of a scenario where you're brushing your teeth and it turns into a goldfish, something weird like that. It is actually a real life scenario. Those are typically felt completely different than a dream, and they should be taken seriously as a vision.
Now, do you think, real quick, do you think it's possible? I'm getting real deep with this. I'm getting real deep now. So, do you think it's possible in your dreams, maybe call it subconscious level, call that astral, projection almost type thing, which we're not getting into yet, but is it possible that we could be doing a little bit of time travel? Perhaps? Do you think it's possible to actually time travel, perhaps, in your dreams, purely accidental? And let me just explain this real quick. So, a few years, I think it may have been, or a year or so after I met, my wife now, Terry Lynn. I was previously married a couple times. And I swear I had this dream, and it was toward the morning, I think, but it was definitely in the morning. But I had this dream, and in my dream, I opened my eyes, and I was literally laying in bed, but it was in the bed of the home that I was last with my ex-wife in. Now, there was nobody home that I know of because I was laying there. And you know how when the sun comes in, almost like a morning time, it comes through the blinds or something like that? Well, I could literally see the dust particles. I mean, it was so vivid, more vivid than any dream I've ever had. I could see the dust particles floating in the sunlight. And it it was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet like you hear in an empty home, like when nobody's home and it's just deathly quiet and there's nothing on, nothing, maybe slight background hums or something, maybe like very lightly type, but you know what I mean? Like that deathly quiet. That's why I didn't think anybody was home. But I woke up, I opened my eyes, I was like literally back in that bed. Like I could like just kind of have that normal smell of the bedroom, the dust particles and the sunlight, the quietness, all those things, right? And it was so real to me. And I was like, oh my God. And I actually started to get really depressed. And I was like, and I thought that maybe the whole time I was with Terry Lynn was a dream. And now I'm back into this nightmare. Like I'm back with my ex-wife. And it's like, oh my God. I was so disappointed that I started getting so sad. And then I was like, wait a minute. I've got to be, this can't be right. And I pulled myself out and I woke up, of course, with the life I have with Terry Lynn. Mm-hmm. So, but it was so like, it was one of the most, to this day, it's still one of the, I've had a few others similar. I've even had one similar for like a past life type thing where I talk about where I drowned. But this was just one of those moments. And I always wondered, like, did I actually time travel or was this just an extremely vivid dream?
Well, I would say you time travel, but not. See, the problem with using the concept of time travel is that everybody has a little bit of a different definition of what it means. Back to the Future, where you're going back in time and all this stuff is happening and it becomes like a loop. That's not really how it works. Time is all happening at the same time. What you're doing when you time travel like that is that you are psychically or your conscious mind is psychically connecting to yourself back in that time. It happens in the future, going in the other direction too, connecting to a point in the future or in the past that you are currently doing there. It's all happening at the same time. What is in time? So you time traveling is kind of a misnomer.
Right.
It's like walking into a different part of your house. Your house is still the house. You're just going into a different room, and you just happen to be in that room too. It's the closest that it actually really is, according to physics, is in that movie with the space movie where he goes into the Tesseract and he's seeing his daughter, and it's not Inception, it's Interstellar. Did you ever see that one?
No. Okay. No, we haven't watched it.
And it's a really bizarre movie, and if you haven't watched it, I'm not going to explain to you, but it basically shows that in the fourth dimension, all things happen all at the same time. It's your ability to actually walk through that room, that from one room to the next, that makes the difference. And your conscious mind, being a quantum computer, can sync up to your quantum computer in the past or in the future. And in the future, when what happens to you in the future, a lot of times you'll get what's known as deja vu. That's your brain syncing up to another time that you already you're literally communicating with yourself at that moment, either in the past or in the future. That deja vu feeling, because you've got two of you going on at the same time. So it's a little bit of a freaky feeling, but yeah, you do it all the time and just don't realize what's going on.
Yeah, and Terry Lynn reminded me too. Is like she said she remembers that morning because I told her about it. I was like, oh my God, because I was so devastated. Like I really felt like everything with Terry Lynn was a dream, and then I was back in that hell with my ex-wife, and I'm like, I just remember just waking up in that dream, like it was just felt so real. And again, maybe it was just a message. I don't know, but I mean, it didn't have that normal feeling other than just the feeling of sadness and not, obviously, like I said, me realizing where I was and all that stuff, but it didn't have the normal signs of like, hey, this is a vision of something in the future or a possible future. So anyway, so yeah, and then let's see, what does Taz say? Taz say, would that be similar to, okay, so Taz says, would that be similar to living another life in a dream? Like, for example, I had a dream that I lived my entire life out as someone else and everything seemed so real. I was confused when I woke up.
That sounds like a memory.
Right.
Like,
I was going to say, that sounds like a past life memory there. Taylor's in possible future, you'll be a dead man. No, not future. God dang. Is that's the future that I just kill myself now because that's horrible.
yeah, I used to get all the time when I was younger, the deja vu thing. I would literally dream something that I'm like, why am I doing this right now? This is weird. I don't know why I'm here. What's going on? You keep talking about something that makes no sense to me whatsoever. And then weeks later, it would actually happen and the deja vu would kick in. I'm like, oh, now I get it. And then I started to pay attention to that.
Right.
But it was never anything significant. It was always something that was trivial and stupid. It was just me hopping through time, connecting to myself throughout time. And, it went away for a while. And then I started doing the remote viewing and then it kicked into high gear all over again. So,
right. I think, honestly, I think there's more to dreams. Obviously, we know that dreams can consist of either visions or, whether they're past, present, future, or maybe a peek into another timeline or whatever, alternate timeline. So, but I think that there's definitely more to dreams than what the mainstream science tries to tell us, because again, that's like when you hear people talk about past lives and you hear like some people just like, oh, that child just has an active imagination, blah, blah, blah. It's like, bitch, what are you talking about? Like, a child that's 3 years old talking about the Titanic and everything else, not the movie, not like we're talking real life stuff. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I think mainstream science is like, no, they're just your pulses firing through your brain and your brain's just entertaining yourself and all this other crap, whatever, all these like possibilities. I mean, I'm not going to totally discredit their theories, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's a lot more to it than some of what the mainstream is trying to tell us. So, but yeah, Terry Lynn said, "Oh my god, that dog is so cute, Stacy." See, your dogs are becoming, famous too. See,
yeah, it needs to.
But, he's like, I don't want them to be. You're stealing my spotlight, dog.
The idea that the human mind can rationalize anything just to make themselves, feel comfortable in their own worldview paradigm is still remarkable to me. People who will rationalize, the idea of God not actually existing is mind-boggling. But they do it. They rationalize it to such a degree. Anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, that they will quickly, curl down into the fetal position and hope it all goes away. And I've never been that way. If something is what it is, accept it, move on, try to adapt. Don't try and say, oh no, that's nothing. It's crazy, because that's how you actually create ignorance. It's willful. That's how what the word means. Ignore. You ignore something. It is a willful act on your part, and I've never been able to do that.
Right. Yeah,
But,
and So, but yeah, I just wanted to tackle a little bit of like some of the minor type of things that people experience. Now, um, so what about visions outside of dreams? You know, premonitions, things like that. What do you? What's your thoughts on? And have you personally had like any things that's come to you when you're awake? Those type of things.
Most of the time. That's the visions themselves. They can come in a lot of different forms because your brain actually works in a lot of different forms and a lot of different media. We understand things through our senses. We see, hear, taste, smell, feel. That's how we primarily understand things. That's how the organism has developed since birth. But that's not the only thing that you can sense. Being able to sense time, sometimes you're like, wow, it just seems like this is going on forever. And especially after you smoke weed, you do that time warp thing where you think like hours have gone by and it's only been like 15 minutes. You have a sense of time as well. Also have a sense of space. You can feel when somebody's coming up behind you or when somebody's staring at you from across the room. You can't see it, you can't feel it, or physically feel it, hear it, any of that, but that there's something really weird going on in that direction. So you look and somebody's staring at you. If you wanted to be invisible to someone, you don't look at them. They can't. You're a blind spot at that point, but they can feel your eyes. You can feel other people's eyes. That kind of sense is paramount to being able to get visions that come to you. Altering your consciousness is also a way of doing that too, with LSD or mushrooms or scopolamine, whatever. It alters the brain being able to do that sort of thing. One of the most intense visions that I had literally happened within seconds of it actually happening. I got into a head-on collision with my truck, and as I was going down a dark country road, the car that was coming down the road at me, I literally saw it cross the center line and hit me. And after the vision, I came back and it was still down the road a little bit, but I slammed on the brakes. I locked him up, and I was almost at a complete stop, and he crossed the center line and hit me straight on. If I'd have been going speed, it would have been
Double or yeah,
really
multiple
bad situation.
Yeah.
And as it was, he wasn't even, if I wasn't there, he still would have crossed the center line and gone into the ditch because he hit my passenger side headlight.
Right.
Went into the ditch and then rolled his vehicle another 15 times, which was crazy because there were telephone poles all along the way. He happened to roll it around the telephone poles as he's going down the ditch and was way down the road behind me when he actually came to a stop. He was
definitely carrying some speed, huh?
Yeah, he was going full tilt, but I had a bigger truck than he did, so I won.
Yeah.
But I saw it. I literally saw it within seconds of it happening. And granted, what I was doing right before that, I was doing an experiment with predicting baseball scores with remote viewing, trying to do the who's going to win in the league and what the scores were going to be. And I was doing this experiment literally for weeks, trying to figure out the best way to go about getting these scores. And I had taken a break to go to the ATM, and that's when that happened. So
yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like learning these abilities, fostering these abilities can be beneficial to a point. Now, so what's your advice other than like, hey, go take my Udemy courses? We have the links down below. Or and of course watch our show and things like that. But do you have any other advice for people that are receiving these messages? Like, should you suppress them? Should you try to embrace them? I mean, what should the average person do when they start experiencing these things and they recognize, like, hey, I watched Josh and Stacy talk about this and they said this is special, so what should I do?
Well, you shouldn't suppress it. I mean, if you were deaf your whole life and all of a sudden you could hear, would you want to put earplugs in to make sure that you were still deaf? I mean, I would want to be able to experience everything that the universe would be able to offer, and being able to recognize that for what it is, rather than something freaky that you're suddenly a witch or something like that. You've actually got yourself an extension of yourself, and it's just as natural as hitting puberty. It is a natural part of not only your physical being but your mental being, your spiritual. It's just now that you're aware of it, it is an epiphany. That's actually what that means, epiphany.
Right.
But in order to harness it, it's a skill. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. That's most people go through life like a hamster in a wheel. They do the same things. They get up at the same time. They do the same things at work. They drive home and do the same thing, and it becomes monotonous. After a while, weeks and months will go by, and you're like, "Oh my God, my life is burning away. What am I doing?" Because you don't pay attention to actually anything that's happening. You go into autopilot. If you were in a position to where you're paying attention to actually everything that's going on inside your own head, you'd be amazed at what you discover. Be amazed at all the things that actually come to you that you can use to take advantage to move forward in life, to grow. In responding in kind. You suddenly, you're driving home and you're like, you know what? I think I'll stop by and get some milk. I'm going to stop at the store and get some milk. I need to get some milk. Don't blow it off. Get the milk, because there might be something that you need to do that's also in the store, pick up in the store, that you're going to need later. And I don't know if it's a domino effect, but listen to the things that are coming to you and act on it. Don't just poo-poo it away. Because you literally have seconds before your brain will automatically delete that information, and you'll forget what you were doing. If you don't respond to it and act on it, your brain will delete it, and you'll be, I forgot to get the milk. Even though that you thought about it, your brain deleted it before you had a chance to actually do anything about it. And that's actually part of what the intuition side of the remote viewing is that first 3 seconds of data dump. It's pure. Your brain starts to delete, your conscious mind starts to delete information after that 3 seconds. When you meet someone for the first time, that first 3 seconds, that impression that you have of that person, that's pure. Society says, don't make a first impression on anybody. You're supposed to let them, prove themselves to you. Well, it turns out that most of the time they prove themselves, and that first 3 seconds was the correct one. Act upon that first 3 seconds in any situation. When you go into a room for the first time, and this is helpful if you're ghost hunting, you go into a room for the first time, and the first thing you feel is a cold chill and dread. Yeah, something shitty went on in that room. You don't have to go, oh no, I'm just feeling weird. It's just, maybe I just got a cold or something. No, listen to that's your intuition. That's really the raw data that hasn't had a chance to be deleted by your conscious mind that's trying to rationalize all of the things that are going on around you.
I think there's a lot of people probably in my life that have been 1 second away from death. Because I've had like 3 seconds to decide. 1, intuition came in. 2, I thought about killing them. And then 3, I said, wait, this is probably not good. My consciousness kicked in. So they were like 1 second away from some of this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But guys, you do have to listen to your consciousness as well. Don't just immediately act on every little thought, because again, the devil likes to plant little seeds in there. But but Stacy makes a good point. You need to act on those intuitions, because again, most of them, when they're filtered, and you get used to filtering them, and once you get through there, you'll pretty much know the ones you need to listen to for sure. But Terry Lynn says, even though this is not good karma, Terry Lynn, I'm gonna let Stacy handle this one. But she said, well, Stacy, you need to practice getting the Mega Million numbers for us.
Yeah, me first.
ICU said, I wonder, does Stacy have any predictions for 2023? State of economy, maybe someone getting impeached, Nasara. And ICU said, yeah, I'm sure Terry Lynn, for sure Terry, laugh out loud. So yeah, I mean, I guess before we get into a little bit of this, could be a little bit of a good segue to go from the average paranormal powers that maybe people experience on a daily to getting into developing those, and some of the powers that people are starting to develop, and some of the different things out there.
Mm-hmm.
So with that transition, I'll let you handle the stuff from ICU when she asks about. Here, I'll put it up on the screen for you if that helps you.
Yeah. God, I hate, coming out and just saying that everything's going to turn to shit and you need to get rice and beans. That's terrible advice. At the same time, it's really good advice. The state of the economy is going to get really, really bad. And when it comes to predictions, I don't take what I use for divination and the talking to the dead and all this other kind of stuff as gospel, because there are a lot of people in my religion that do the same kind of thing, and there's a coalition of a hierarchy essentially that makes these predictions, and they do it at the beginning of the year. Every year they put a list together, and I go over what I have, and they send me what they got. And the consistent thing with this year, it can be boiled down to 2 words as far as how you should behave through 2023. And that is evaluate and reevaluate. Everything that you do with everything that's in your life needs to be evaluated and then reevaluated. That means a doctor tells you one thing, you evaluate whether or not it's horseshit, and then you reevaluate it by getting a second opinion and find out whether that's horseshit. This last year that we've had, or the last 2 years we've had with, vaccinations and the way that played out, has really destroyed the credibility of the medical industry and the media as well. Evaluating the things that people say and then reevaluating whether or not that what they're saying has, agenda or whatever attached to it. And that goes across the board for everything: your mechanic, your doctors, your lawyers, anybody who has any kind of authority that tells you what to do with your life. Do not take it as gospel. It is evaluate and reevaluate. That come, the government, anything. Simply because no one's going to care for you more than you. And understand that. Your money, no one's going to care about your money more than you. Don't think you have to keep your money in the bank because everybody says, well, that's the safest place. Evaluate whether that's true or not, and then reevaluate what's a better option. All of these things are, it's going to be a massive shift in the way society is actually put together and run. And I can't tell you how to live your life in that way, give you advice predictions wise, because everybody's going to have it a little bit different. I could tell you the stock market's going to crash. Okay. But not everybody's in the stock market. So it doesn't matter. It does nothing for you. what stocks are going to crash. So all of it, or just like the tech stocks, or is it the gold? You start getting specific because people have specific um, ways in which they invest, and it doesn't get that detailed. What you need to do is recognize how stable things truly are and see them as they really are. Take off the rose-colored glasses, evaluate and reevaluate. That's the key to everything going forward for the rest of this year, because the literal foundation of how we've been doing things since World War II, essentially, are being ripped out, root and berry. It's going to be really hard for a lot of people because you've got generations. The baby boomers grew up, post World War II, and they're the oldest generation really going on right now. Nobody's lived through another the Great Depression is still alive. And if they were alive, they were, children. They were like kindergarten age. They don't really remember it. We're going to have something very, very similar to it, because, and just actually 2 days ago, to give you an idea of that's happening. Saudi Arabia said that they're no longer going to accept only the dollar to buy oil. That is the petrodollar, which is where we get our tremendous wealth in this country. Everybody around the world has to use American dollars in order to buy oil. That's where it gets its value. And that's no longer going to be the case. The dollar itself, the petrodollar, has died, meaning all of that money that's around the world that people have been using to buy oil with, American dollars, is all coming back home. It's going to be a massive amount of money that is going to be pumped back into the American system that is not going to have anywhere to go. We have $31 trillion in debt in this country, but there's $300 trillion around the world. That money all has to come back home now because the petrodollar was used for that. And it's way too much money to come back into the economy. You're talking literally 300 times the amount of money that we're currently working with in order to move things around. Meaning the price of eggs expected to go up 300%. That's just off of that. Everything across the board, 300%. Because that money has to go somewhere, and it's not being used to buy oil. That's just one thing, and it's going to get really ugly from there. So when it comes to, predictions for this year, I don't want to get anybody all weirded out and depressed and, suicidal or anything like that, because this is a very survivable thing. 2023 is just going to be a really bad 2021. Going to last, okay, but the point being is this is a survivable event. And as long as you understand, see things for what they are, evaluate, reevaluate, you can avoid a lot of the crap that a lot of people will end up doing, because they're just going to sleepwalk right into it, like sleepwalking into traffic. And that's really, it's not necessary. When you wake up and you're standing in traffic, it's a shock. You don't need to do that. You can wake up beforehand. And
Terry Lynn said, but with that being said, everything's going to turn to shit. Get rice and beans. And of course, ICU says she's not eating the bugs, no matter what they say.
Yeah.
Terry Lynn's like, amen, sister. Oh yeah, I already. ICU says, oh yeah, I heard they already hit the debt ceiling. Yeah, they were talking about that on the news too. They were talking about the debt ceiling.
Yeah, that they play that game every year. They re-up the debt ceiling. It'll probably go up to 37 trillion when the legislation goes through.
So now that we kind of talked a little bit about but let's get back on somewhat of a subject of paranormal powers, which is so so we talked a little bit about things that you can experience normally. Now, so some of the different powers I wanted to touch on, and what I call powers. I mean, I know it makes it sound like superhero type stuff, but it's the only way I can really describe it because normal people, that's what they look at, as like, oh, some kind of superpower. I don't know, but like Stacey said, we all possess these powers. It's what you choose to do with them, whether you ignore them or embrace them or whatever. So some of the things, of course, some of you guys have heard, like you have psychics, right? You have mediums, you have clairvoyance, and of course, there's different types of clairvoyancy, precog and present, and then even post cognition, whatever you call. So basically, like past, present, future. You have the ability to. We could even get into like astral projection if you want to consider that a power, an ability that you could do. There's again an empathetic side of things too. There's a lot of empaths out there. And I want to point one more thing out before I let Stacey talk about some of these different things, is that you can actually have multiple powers. You can be an empath with good intuition, like you can develop your intuition. You can be empathic. You can even have some psychic abilities or maybe mediumistic if you have a spirit guide, things like that. You can have visions of the future. Maybe you have visions of the past, maybe a little bit of both, maybe some present visions. Again, you can have a little bit of everything or a few things, or you can try to develop a big, broad spectrum. You could do some remote viewing, all these different cool things out there. But it's not just, it doesn't mean you have to be stuck to just one thing like, oh, I have intuition, that's what it is. Well, no, you may have some precog abilities. You may have, some empathic abilities. You may have some of these different things. So learning to sort of maybe even separate them, but use them at the same time and develop them, and even maybe develop ones you don't even know about yet. So the floor is yours, Stacey. I just wanted to throw that mess of subject out to you.
Right. Well, all of those were breakdowns of essentially the same.
Right.
Having the ability to do all of those things exist within all of us. Just like being able to play tennis or play music or even sing. These all involve a certain level of skill and control over your body, and it's done through practice and muscle memory and being able to like when you're singing, you hear a tone, you hear a note, you know exactly when you hit that note because you hear it at the same time your voice is vibrating down here. Those two things sync together and you know exactly when you've hit it. It's when you hit a baseball with a bat, and the moment you hit that ball, you can tell whether or not it's going home run or not. And that feeling that you get when you that solid pop on that bat, you know exactly that thing's going over the fence.
Oh yeah.
And it's not, it's not precognition that's done it. It is literally muscle memory and that ability to communicate with the ball and the bat at the same time. You feel it in the bat. It is an ability to do these things better than maybe something else. Somebody who is a pianist who's use a lot of fine dexterity may not be able to play tennis, which is gross dexterity. You're swinging the whole arm, you're swinging the shoulder and on all of that. And the dexterity that you use in one may not translate into the other. Doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you're better at one than you are the other.
Right.
And all of these things are the same thing. Just because
you're
getting vision.
And I wanted to clarify that too. It's like really, you're right. And it's good for people to know that a lot of the stuff is all one and the same, but we say things like clairvoyance or mediums. That's really more of just labels of when you have to describe the type of thing, like if it's a vision of the future or a vision of this. It's just a way for us to sort of describe those things and put that type of label on those things. So I just wanted to clarify that, and that's what Stacy's trying to explain. Is like, hey, look, whether it's this or this, or whether you call yourself a medium or whatever, it's all really the same of getting all the information out of the spiritual highway, the spiritual internet.
Right. And being able to work with it and pay attention to it. And that's really the key to being psychic, is the ability to pay attention to what's going on inside your own head. Most people don't look at what in a third person kind of way, what is going on inside their own head. People with mental illness, they do it a lot because they're constantly reevaluating whether or not what they're doing is crazy. And they're trying to interpret whether or not what is going on in their head, as opposed to how everybody else is relating to it, seems crazy, or whether it is crazy. They're constantly reevaluating that kind of thing as a way of being in society. And it's a lot of work, really. People who have mental illness have to put forth a lot of effort just to move through life. Being psychic or using psychic abilities are kind of the same in that regard. That's why people who are really, really psychic, who ignore really, really psychic stuff, end up going crazy, because the brain eventually just breaks. There comes a point where you cannot ignore certain things, and it will, if you think you're crazy, eventually you do become crazy. You have to recognize things as they are, for what they are. And that's how you maintain sanity.
Now, one thing I want to touch on as well that we hit on a little bit earlier was when we talked about dreams and past lives and stuff like that. I do want to touch on that again a little bit, because I know reincarnation is definitely something that Taylor, that's. But anyways, sorry about that. I got sidetracked. And Taylor messaged me on the side talking about her being crazy. But anyways, Taylor's like, yes, Stacey, I hear you. I'm officially crazy.
No, I'm saying the opposite of that.
So, but in any case, I want to go back to past lives, and even people that have dreams and visions of past lives. Now there is a few different theories of reincarnation. Now, I have a theory that I put in my book, which is, of course, available on Amazon, called My Paranormal: A Guide to the Spirit Realms. And I don't seem to have a copy right in front of me to make the joke funnier. So I'm getting it. It fell on the ground because it's such a good book. Okay. But yes, my book right here.
My Paranormal.
Almost looked blank right there. I swear, there really is words. Okay. So I do talk about my belief in reincarnation. I do believe in reincarnation, but I personally kind of go against the grain with a lot of people that took from the sort of the Hindu culture and things like that with soul reincarnation. I'm more of a spirit body reincarnation, and I explain that more in the book, where I talk about the soul and how the three parts. You have the flesh, which is the physical connection our soul has to earth. And it's only around for the physical limitations, that we have and how we treat our bodies and all that good stuff. And we also have the spirit body, which is, harboring that soul, and that spirit body is what connects us to what the things that Stacy talks about, the spiritual highway, all that stuff. That's what connects us to the spiritual world, is the spirit body. And of course, I personally believe that in a nutshell, and I talk about all the different reasons why in the book. But essentially, when we, pass, and our soul and our spirit body are separated, which the only one that can do that is God. But once he separates that spirit body and soul, then our soul actually gets a new spirit body. That's the one that connects us to the heavens, whatever you want to call it, like the next level, the next plane, heavens, whatever the next step is. We get a new spirit body. The old spirit body has that old imprint. It's like a carbon copy of ourselves, that was, peeled off of the soul. And I believe that spirit body then gets harbored onto another soul. And that is why kids experience the memories they do for those crucial years from like 2 to 7 years old. They experience memories. They experience, all these things, because it's that true carbon print of that spirit body on their soul. And of course, it fades over time and things like that. But we still have those, even as an adult. They even do hypnosis, where you can go in and do these regressions, and you can actually go way back. But some of us, I know I'm not trying to talk for Terry Lynn, but I know Terry Lynn has had certain, visions or dreams that were not like normal dreams. These were set in a specific time period. A lot of them were first person. They just were a window into a past life. And as I have talked about, I've had a few of those myself. One of them specifically, I think somewhere in the 60s. I think I was driving a car and I was by a lake. The road went right by the lakeside. There was a dirt turnaround, and I remember kind of spinning around, kind of trying to do like a little donut thing. And I spun around, and the ass end of the car went into the lake. Or no, yeah, spun around and went into the lake, and then the car actually started to flip around and nose down and sink. And I was like getting floated back up to the back of the car, and I actually ended up drowning. I couldn't get out of the vehicle. But it was extremely vivid, all the way to the point where I woke up not breathing. So I'm pretty sure I experienced the life just before I was born, because the time frame, unless I had another little mini life where I was like a baby for like 8 months and I died. But I think the time frame all matches up. And then I've also had a few other things. Terry Lynn, I think, has visions that go back even further in time than I do. I don't feel like my spirit body goes back as far. But in any case, so I just wanted to touch a little bit on some of that. I'll let Stacy talk a little bit, because some people believe it's your soul that keeps coming back and it has to atone and, keep building things. Again, there's like that sort of Hindu style reincarnation. But again, I've always believed that we're a unique soul. All of us are unique. And that's how much we always preach it. We always preach it in this world. We're unique. We're all unique. Well, if you're unique, then you get one good go around at this earth. But I think that's what those spirit bodies are there. And again, my spirit body will get passed on to somebody else, most likely at some point, and they'll probably have, and it'll seem like I was reincarnated, but my soul will actually be somewhere else, and somebody will experience my.
Now, did you read that concept of reincarnation somewhere? Did you just instinctually just know
the spirit body reincarnation?
Yeah,
that was the epiphany moment I had when I watched a TV show a long time ago, and that was what actually inspired me to write my book, because I had all these theories of all my paranormal theories came from not so much like the Bible or anything like that, but all my paranormal theories came from experiences over the years when I was a teenager, going to certain haunted places, cemeteries, whatever. As I got older, and then when Terry Lynn and I started doing investigations, all those things, that's where all my theories, like actually seeing sort of these patterns. I've always been a big believer that truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. So when you hear different sides of the afterlife tale, when you go out and do investigations, and then you start seeing certain repetitive patterns, you're like, okay, so this seems to make sense then. And that's why I tell people all the time, it's important to actually go out and do things like that. Because
the reason I ask is because if you pick up the Egyptian Book of the Dead by Budge, who it actually wasn't all that good, and in deciphering, but he did nail something very, very, very good, which was what you're talking about here. The ancient Egyptian, their whole society was built around the idea that there are 4 aspects. There's the mind, body, soul, and ghost. Those 4 aspects, and they're called Ba, Sa, Ka, and Ta.
Right.
And those 4 things, the soul is what goes into the afterlife, the Ka, and the Ba, which is the ghost, that actually is a manifestation of the flesh. It is it's a ghost, but it's not necessarily a conscious thing. It's more of an animal level consciousness.
Right.
The lizard brain, it's afraid of death more than anything. It is the part of you that is afraid of death. When you fear death, that is not your soul, that's your ghost. And when that ghost actually senses death is on its way, up to 3 days ahead of time, it will leave. You will just suddenly, for whatever reason, start to feel euphoric and, my gosh, life is wonderful. It's beautiful. The flowers are so brilliant looking. It smells wonderful. Life is great. And then you drop dead 3 days later because death is on its way, and the ghost that is the animal side that's trying to preserve itself is freaked out, and it just leaves. That part of you is a lot of times what is remnants in a lot of these places. It does not want to come across death. It fears it more than anything. So
Right.
it will hang around homes or cemeteries or whatever it is, trying to avoid the spirit, whether that be the Grim Reaper or whatever it's fearing. It fears death, and it is the animal side,
Right.
animalistic stuff. And
I mean, I like the thoughts behind it. I don't know if I exactly agree with the Egyptians on that part, because of how many. Like I wrote when I did research about. I have kind of death broken down in 2 ways: expected and unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And for sure, when you take in accounts of people that were expecting death, we're talking no matter the age, people that have cancer or terminal illnesses, things like that, people that know their time is coming. Sometimes it's just being elderly. They know their time is coming. There's no more. They just know. They're like, look. And then there's also, and I'm just paraphrasing, I'm just trying to sum everything up. But like, even when I also say expected death, is sometimes it's somebody that was in an accident. Maybe they're stuck in a vehicle and they're trapped and there's no help. They're at the bottom of a ravine and they have time to prepare,
Mm-hmm.
and they prepare and they face their death ahead of time. There seems to be a different process. There seems to be a lot of certain common ground that people go through. And at the very end, now again, a lot of people live to end up telling the side of things, but then when they start talking about people that are terminal, whatever, that are prepared for death, there's witnesses, things like that. There's accounts, things that people have said right before they died, and then they seem to give up the ghost, right? The phrase "give up the ghost." So, but I don't necessarily know if I mean, I know that there's some people that sometimes will feel better right before, maybe a few days out. But for the most part, I think most people, I think there's a sense of when they come to terms. What I've kind of noticed is it seems as if the people that are facing death, it seems like they start getting visited by either relatives or guardian angels, or whatever you want to call them, or spirit guides. And it's almost like preparation for a transition to the afterlife. And when their soul leaves that body, it's not, there's no more physical. Remember, we're getting rid of one of three parts of you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you leave your spirit, your flesh, then it's not like you're like, oh, hey, I'm used to not having legs and hands and feet and stuff. So I believe that that's what, when people talk about relatives that are waiting for you, like, you know, a lot of times it seems to be like this party of different people waiting for you, and I think that yes, they probably are there to help guide you to that light, which is a portal to wherever, whether you believe in God, Jesus, whatever. But it seems to be that there is some type of white light. It does seem to have some type of gravitation, and there seems to be beings there that seem to help guide that soul, that spirit body and soul, into the next, like the transition. So that seems to be a very common thing. So I'm just trying to talk in generalities. You can apply your own religions and things like that for the people listening. Terry Lynn, I did want to say also too, she did say that, and when it comes to past lives, she said that she's been back several times, got a lot to learn, must have been a real shit past life, uh, got to go through what I have this lifetime. But again, and this is where the differences of, like, you know, where like Terry Lynn has always been in the belief of that type of reincarnation, of having to learn lessons and things like that. Where I've always differed in that sense of, like, I think it's just the spirit bodies that have been, you know, passed on, and she's experiencing those and things like that. But I do think there's connections to those, and it probably is a lot like, I do think that some of those spirit bodies are matched up. I don't think they're just thrown on any particular. I think when God creates our original soul, He's pairing us with, you know, like when you pair wines, you know, He pairs us with a nice spirit body. Sometimes it's a relative, like a past relative. We've heard reincarnations of people that were, you know, like their grandfather or something. You know what I mean? Like they've had the traits of their grandfather, and so I think that they've inherited some of their family spirit bodies and stuff like that. But, anyways, but yeah, I mean,
I'm more in Terry Lynn's camp on that, largely because from my own experience of, you know, the memories that I've had and gone through. There's a mission to life as far as I'm concerned. You're here to learn something. Whether or not I was a real shitbag in a past life is irrelevant. It's something that I missed, or something that I need to pass along, that somebody else needs to learn. Because you being in this physical form may not even be for you. It may be for someone else. Maybe for the next soul, your child. It may be for nothing more than walking a little old lady across the street so she doesn't get hit. You know, you chose to come here for a particular reason, for a particular mission. And when that mission is completed, that's when it's time to move on. And a lot of times you're given the choice whether you want to continue on or to, you know, get recycled. You know, you've fulfilled your mission. It's time to go back to retirement, you know, to the other side, you know, and there's a conscious decision whether you really realize that's what you're doing or not. You make that decision whether or not you want to move forward in this existence. And that mission is the whole reason you were here in the first place. You know, it's not because I was a real shitbag, because everybody, if you go back far enough in time in reincarnation, everybody did something shitty. You know, whether you were a soldier and you killed people, whether you, you know, decided to, you know, do something that you were a slave owner or whatever it was, that part doesn't matter. It is the lessons and the experiences that you have that are really what's important, because that's the only thing you take with you. You know, you don't take anything with you except what you've learned. Everything else gets left behind. And, you know, being able to retain that and move forward, because that's, you know, when you cross over, from what the dead say, you go through your whole life experience, and, you know, your whole life flashes before your eyes, and you experience your whole life in a microsecond, but it's incredibly detailed at the same time. And in the end, it's like, what have you learned? You know, that's the one question you get when you go to the other side.
right.
And that's really the whole mission. What have you learned? Is this the thing?
See, I think for me, it's a little bit of I try to look at the big picture of life in the sense too that, so the way I look at it is this. I feel like I'm living this whole life. I'm going through all these trials and tribulations and things. And so I meet Terry Lynn, right? She's my soulmate. I love her. We have amazing memories and experiences. We have family together now, children, right, and stuff. So I guess I just look at it like I think it would kind of suck to get to the end of my life, die, and then start over with no memories of my soulmate and everything else. And these memories that we made in this life. You know, I don't want to hear like, oh, well, in the next life you're going to get with Terry Lynn again. Well, that's great. I mean, that's awesome. But what happened to this life and these memories and all this stuff? And like, I don't want to put them on a hard drive and wait and watch them later. This is what I want now. Like, she's the person and I'm the person. These memories, the children, like, you know, our son, all that stuff. I want to experience that beyond, not just one time, then bookshelf it for, you know, an eternity, and then all of a sudden one day it's like, hey, look at here's all your memories back of here's all your past lives or something. Like, that's why I just don't buy into that. I don't buy into that because, again, I have no memory of a life before other than just a few flashes of things that, again, I think are imprints of the spirit body that lived in multiple lives before me. Because
well,
again, you know,
news, you don't have to accept that. What you can do, they have regression hypnosis, and it's been very effective in being able to go back into every life and you remember things, not just the circumstances, but in particular skills. People have learned after doing regressive hypnosis. They've learned languages that they didn't know that they knew. They've come back with memories of things that they used to like to do that they didn't really recognize. That's what, like being a skilled potter, being able to work with different musical instruments, things of that kind. Just by doing the reverse hypnosis, those memories are still there. It's just being able to tap into it. Your brain, that lemon, is blocking it, and it does it for self-preservation. You just have to get past it into the subliminal level because it's all still there. That all of that information, it's part of you. It's just a matter of whether or not you can tap into it or not. A lot of people who've done it really started to feel an enormous amount of guilt because then they take on this whole idea that, yeah, I used to own slaves in a past life and I'm now a real shitbag. They take on the guilt of what it is they were before, which becomes debilitating. But you don't have to accept the idea that this is something that you're going to experience when you cross over to the other side, because it's not true. It's all still there. You can, and it doesn't cost very much to get a hypnosis to actually do it for you. They'll do it, relatively
right.
cheap.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that those memories don't exist, but I don't know. I just, like I said, I have a much, the evidence and the things I've looked and from the other experiences that people talk about. For me, it makes more sense that a spirit body with the residual memories, the imprints of the past lives are getting passed on, and our soul, gets to go and do these things and move on. And maybe there's a whole other things where we do get to keep all of these conscious lives on Earth, and we go to this other planet and it's like Earth 2, and everybody's like, yeah, man, and we have a memory of our first go around on Earth, and then we go to our next level and we have that. Who knows? There's all kinds of fun things we could do. So let me catch up some comments here. Terry Lynn says, so we are really a light / spiritual beings having a human experience. Terry Lynn says, yeah, you have to find me sooner next time. I mean, I know we joke about that. Terry Lynn says, laugh out loud, Terry. And she said, well, Josh, your past life, you went driving and didn't find me. I probably was on my throne somewhere. And then Taz says, this is probably a weird question. Do you think energy from a big event from the future can cause visions or the deja vu feeling from that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I get that all the time. Things that are over the horizon in the timeline are, because that's how time actually is measured, is by events, not by 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. No, it's not. The way that we measure time is completely made up. The concept of time is done in micro events and massive events, like 9/11. 9/11 was an event that really put itself in the human consciousness. Thing of it was, is it was doing it before that too. Most people didn't catch it. Remote viewers did, but they didn't understand it because they were just learning how to use remote viewing in the first place in the military.
Right. And then like ICU said, like maybe a certain collider, but then Taz said ICU, or like the future vision of yourself experience something.
Yes. Yeah, that's the deja vu.
Right. So, Bill, like your wreck, how you experienced the wreck, you got a vision.
Yes. Literally seconds beforehand. That 3-second window that I was talking about, that's how quickly it happened. And I responded just in reflex. That this was because I saw it, and it felt so real that I slammed on the brakes thinking that it was happening, and it didn't yet. And the other truck, the little truck, was down the road yet, and it locked up the brakes, and I was almost at a complete stop when it hit me, when it crossed the line and front-ended me.
I mean, really, you could really sum up all of that, like all the deja vu moments, with just simply saying it's a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah.
So guys, we're gonna start. We're gonna start trying to wrap up everything here with these last few minutes. Don't forget, probably around like 11 o'clock, I'm going to be streaming a new game. I was going to tell you the new game, but Terry Lynn won't even tell me yet what the new game is. That's dumb, but I wanted to try to tell you guys, but she's being mean and holding back on the name of the game. And so I'm calling you out, Terry Lynn, because I was trying to tell people what the game is, but I guess I'm still going to have to find out at the very, very last minute. So don't forget, I'm going to be playing some game. Who knows what it is? Who knows? Probably, whatever. And but it's going to be apparently cool, fun. A little later, apparently it is going to be scary. A scary game. It's always going to be a scary game. It's never going to be like Sunshine and Rainbows, or it's not going to be like Mario or something. All right. So she's always going to make me play something scary. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Okay. But yeah, so guys, so I really hope if you have any last minute questions on sort of paranormal powers, I hope we were able to cover that subject with you guys tonight pretty well. Again, there's so much more you can get into it, but if you're interested in learning more about those things, again, you can keep tuning into us. Also, Stacy has courses on Udemy. There's a link down below. I do recommend. I was taking his remote viewing course. So there's always a good chance, like I said, not always a good chance. I don't know where I was going with that one, but there's always a course. There's always something out there that we can try to help you with on those things. If you have questions, you're not sure about things, hit us up. You can contact me through email. Again, with Stacy's courses, you can contact them through the Udemy stuff as well. No matter what it is, we will set you straight. Like, we'll try to get you set on the right path or whatever it is. We're here to help. So with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. And remember, we try to do this about every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, depending on what's going on. And if you have other questions or you want to hear other show topics, hit us up. I've been getting some emails lately for some game suggestions on Twitch. So if you guys have suggestions on topics you want to see in the future us cover, We probably covered them. We have a lot of videos in the history, but if you want to hear us talk about them again or a fresh take on them, email me or hit me up, message me, whatever it takes. It's a pigeon. I don't know. Give me a message. Let me know what it is. But guys, we'll see you all later. Thank you all so much. If you have not hit the subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button. Click that like button. You guys have been amazing. We'll see you next video. And remember, seek the truth.
Peace.